The officials are ready. The fighters are in the ring, and they are ready. So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble.
So how are you? Eid Mubarak.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, like you said, we just finished this month of fasting of Ramadan, and now
Yes.
we're in Eid, which comes right after it. It's where we really like feast everything that we've been missing out on fasting during that last month. And yeah, it's just some good time with the family and everything before I go back to camp.
And I was gonna say, thank you so much for your time, because I know this is technically like work for you, so you're not supposed to be working right.
No, it's all good. This stuff I never get used to. These are dreams that I'm living through every single day. I never get used to this stuff. I've been, envisioning interviews and podcasts and stuff like that ever since I was a kid. So I'll never say I'm too busy for that, because that's just the kid in me being alive again,
And how you speak, how you articulate your words. I just want to let you know, like, even more of a supporter after doing that, after doing research on
I
this.
appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. It's something that, again, I just do a lot of, maybe you might have heard it, but I do a lot of visualization, and I know what I want to do in the sport for my people and for my country. And for what I want to do, I have to be well spoken.
Yeah, absolutely. So where did it all begin?
I mean it. Before I start, I just have to let everybody know that in the Arab world, in Saudi Arabia or in Egypt, my mother is Egyptian, so I was between Saudi Arabia and Egypt a lot. So in the Arab world in general, we don't have specific sport gyms. We have one big sport complex or a few big sport complexes that have all the sports participating in that one complex, where you get to see, you get to see every single sport as they are doing their thing, and everybody has the tennis, people have their tennis, people have their football field, and so on. This primarily comes just from the culture. It's something in the culture. We've always had these sport complexes. It's also, you could think about it as like a country club. It's like a country club, but for sports, for all sports.
Like Chelsea Piers, how they have the big sports complex.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so I started with tennis as a kid. I started as a 7-year-old kid. From 7 years until, I think primarily everybody starts off with tennis for some reason, but
That's so funny.
but in the Arab world especially, every young kid, their parents have always wanted them to play tennis for some reason. So a lot of us played tennis as kids, and I started off with tennis. And then before we'd go to the tennis courts, we'd always warm up on the running track.
Okay.
And so this is the funny thing now. So every single sport had its own equipment and had its own space to train in, except the boxing people. The boxing people, they didn't have any equipment. They didn't have a place to train, and they didn't have any bags. They only had one coach, and they used to train on the running track. And we would do the warm-ups and the fitness training for tennis on the running track. So we do our sprints, our reflex, our reflex movements, our footwork on the running track. And then I'd see the boxing people as they train, and I'd see that momentum and that, intensity. It's just a coach standing with his mitts, and the kids are lined up waiting for their turn. That's it. They had nothing else. No ring, no equipment, no bag, nothing, not even a closed space. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but I saw that, and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I fell in love with the intensity and the passion that each one of them showed. And then I went back home and I started to look into it. And I looked into it, and then I found out that there are no boxing champions, in the pro game from Saudi Arabia. And then I looked into it even deeper. There are no boxing champions in the professional game from the Arab world as a whole. We don't have a single champion from the Arab world. We don't have a single champion from Saudi Arabia, especially someone that's local. I wasn't born abroad. I wasn't raised abroad. I grew up in the boxing system in Saudi Arabia, in the Arab world, in Egypt. I grew up and I was trained by Arab coaches up until I was 19 years old. So I'm a local talent that's
Wow.
now turned
Bigger.
pro
Bigger.
internationally. Yeah, it's because, like I told you, it's what I had to work with and what I had to deal with in terms of, yeah, I fought here for 11 years in the Arab world, and 5 years of them, 6 years of them, I didn't have a boxing ring. I didn't even have a boxing ring.
Oh,
I
really?
trained on
So,
the running. Yeah, no, I didn't have a closed space. I didn't have a boxing ring. I trained on the running track. When we used to spar, they used to put people in a shape of a square where we
oh,
would just,
man, that's
two people
amazing.
would get in the middle and we would spar. Yeah, and then, it's really that's where the story kicks off from. I said I wanted to do that. I want to be the first to do this. I want to be the first to do that, and that's why every single small milestone to others is huge for me, because so many people thought it's not going to be done or it can't.
Okay, so did you live in Egypt first, or did you live in Saudi?
So I lived really just always between both. My school was in Egypt because I
Okay.
was with my mother in Egypt, but then every single weekend I was in Saudi. So it was
Wow.
like an agreement between my parents, you know what I mean?
And how far was that commute, kind of like from where your mother lived to where your father lived?
Oh, it's a 2 hour flight. It's a 2 hour flight.
Yeah, so
So yeah,
a long that's a long way, actually.
yeah, it is, but it's just a huge part of my culture that I'm so grateful for, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, of course. My mother is my best friend, and my father is my next
Yeah,
best friend.
exactly.
So,
Exactly. And I'm the same exactly. And I speak a lot about that, about parents and how
oh yeah,
how you have to keep them happy if you want to stay happy in your own life, keep them happy in theirs. So
yeah,
keep your parents happy in their life so you could be happy in your own life. Keep your parents, satisfied in their life so you could be happy in your life. And if it's that through you or if it's through something else that you're doing for them, as long as they're happy and satisfied, then this is the biggest purpose anything could give me.
How old are you, Zizo?
I'm about to turn 23.
That's amazing. That's God bless you,
Yeah.
man. Because you have like an old soul. Like you, I feel like that you're
Yeah.
more wisdom. I feel like there's more wisdom. Just that's going back to when I was saying how you speak and just how you
Yeah.
articulate words. So
Yeah.
that's
And it's because it's like they say, you only know the true value of something once you let it go, once it's taken out of your life. And
like you don't.
if it's come at, for your point, maybe it's come through your 30s where you felt your parents' teachings as you started focusing on your own life and your work, and you started getting busy and you had less time for them, then they became more important to you and you wanted to become more in touch and more connected with them as the universe started to disconnect you from them because of your work or your life. But that happened at a later age. For me, I had to leave and I had to travel abroad at 19 years old. So I left at 19, and this is where it hit me. So the universe disconnected me from my parents. And then one day, all of a sudden, they're not the people I'm waking up to every single day anymore. They're not
Uh,
the people I'm sitting in the living room with every day anymore. So when that happens, that's when you really start focusing on what they told you, and you start craving. It's not even a feeling of wanting to hear what they say or their advice. You start craving their advice
yes,
so
I know.
you could get your life going again. Or so you start calling them more often, you start talking to them more often, you want to spend more time with them. That's just exactly what happened with me. When you
Wow.
said, that when you're younger, it's usually very easy to
Hmm.
just, forget or let the importance of something pass by easily once you start seeing it every day.
Like
But
taking
once
it,
they start,
right? Like taking it for.
exactly, 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 you're just taking it for granted. So it's like, you know what? think about it like this. Think about it as your parents are superheroes, but they only started to become superheroes once they started appearing at the right time and not every single time.
Oh,
You
you
know what
messing
I
with
mean?
because you're right.
Yeah, yeah, because exactly, because when
Oh,
you
man.
if say for example, say Superman or Batman or Spider-Man was your cousin, and you'd see them every single day. If you saw them every single day, they wouldn't be a superhero. They'd be your cousin. But once they start only appearing at the time you need them the most, that's when they start becoming your superhero.
This is wild because yeah, everything that you're saying is absolutely true because it was literally when I went away for work that I was
Yeah.
at my lonesome, and I don't travel abroad, but I just traveled within the states. But I was gone
Hmm.
for a time, like I think my longest project was like 546 days straight or something. I didn't see
Oh
my parents.
man. Oh,
Yeah.
oh man, that's a long time.
Even though I wasn't that far, I couldn't go back home because I was working
Yeah.
like 15 hours a day, something crazy. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So
Hmm.
that's when I noticed myself calling my mother more.
Exactly, exactly. But you see, what you're saying is a concept I always think about and I always try to read about more and listen to more. So it's it's times of stress that unlock new levels in our personality and in our physical self. We only improve as human beings in times of stress. And there are two main things that cause times of stress. The first one is distance.
This
Distance from your comfort zone. So distance from the comfort zone is the first thing that causes stress. And then the second one that causes stress is isolation in the
ah,
beginning.
that's
So when you're at a
my
big distance from your comfort zone, and
mhm.
when you're in isolation, you reach elevation. And that's what happens. You reach elevation in your thinking. You reach elevation in your courage, in your bravery, in your thoughts, in your ideas, in your risk taking. You reach elevation in isolation because when you're alone, you start having your best thoughts, you start having your best risks, you start taking your best life changing decisions. So, but what isolation creates is stress in the beginning. And what distance from your comfort zone creates is stress, but only in the beginning, because then you start unlocking new levels on how to deal with all that, how to deal with being alone and how to deal with being away from your comfort zone. That unlocks new levels in your personality and in your life. And then there you go. You've become a brand new person with
Oh,
brand new levels. It's like you're elevating.
see how I just took a deep breath? I feel like I'm really Zizo. I feel like I'm in a. How did you adapt to all the traveling yourself? Did your family travel with you, or because you're young? I mean, from 19 years
Yeah.
old, you said you went. What happened after 19? Oh, so let's go from there.
So the short answer is I really didn't adapt. I like I told you in the beginning, it was very stressful. And until today, it's very stressful. It's
Ah,
just you either look at the cup half empty or half full. And so before, when I wasn't that experienced in traveling and living alone, I used to look at times of stress as a negative thing. But now,
right.
because I'm so experienced and I know that it's the times of isolation and stress that I become a better self, a better version of myself, I now look forward to it. I look
And
forward to the troubles I'm going to face in isolation or when I travel and adapting to a new place. That's why when Coach Buddy takes me to new places, we don't usually go to the same place for camp every single time. Maybe sometimes I'm in the UK, maybe I'm in the US, maybe I'm in different states in the US, places I've never been before. You know what I mean? Living completely alone, dealing with new people. And we're only there for 8 or 10 weeks. So what happens is you start so uncomfortably there. And then because it's
imagine.
only 8 weeks, by the time you're about to get comfortable, it's time to go. So you
Yeah.
don't you never really taste that full comfort. So it just teaches you to embrace, like you said, embrace the times of stress and embrace the struggles of adapting. But at least I know that I've unlocked a new level, and that is to be patient when adapting. Not that I will be able to adapt, but I'm just
Oh, that,
more patient now in adapting. So I just tried to, because I had no boxers to study that came before me, because I'm the first to do it.
yeah,
So I
that's
had no fighters to study who
amazing. Really,
traveled abroad. I
that's
appreciate
amazing.
that. I really appreciate that. I couldn't study the fighters that traveled abroad before me, because I was the first one that tried to turn pro abroad and are starting to actually get the ball rolling, because I'm the first one. So what I started to do is I started to study other athletes and other sports that have come from the same place that I did. So
Wow.
I started to study the football players, like the soccer players
Yes,
that
yes.
traveled abroad, and who made it abroad, and then who didn't, and why did the people who make it abroad make it, and why did the people who ended up traveling back home travel back home. And then I realized that the game in adapting abroad or adapting in an uncomfortable situation is all mental, zero physical, zero. So I was listening to a football player, and maybe his level isn't the best one out of those who attempted to travel abroad, but he is the best, one of the best in the world now, because he was able to stay abroad. The others couldn't make it. The others were very good players, but then they just couldn't adapt to the lifestyle, the difference in culture, and all that. And then what that football player that actually stayed there and is now one of the best in the world said, he said that when he traveled abroad, he just started to speak exactly like the country he was in, the people that were in the UK. He plays in the UK. He said, I started to speak like them. I started to eat like them. I started to go out where they go out. I started to celebrate what they celebrate. All that, he started to do all that while keeping his own culture and identity attached. He didn't disconnect. But what he was doing is just adding to his arsenal of things to celebrate and people to sit down with and meet and talk. And
It's amazing.
exactly. So he just turned his uncomfort zone to a comfort zone, because he started becoming one of those people that celebrate the exact same things that the people celebrate there where he lives. So I started doing the exact same thing. I started speaking. English wasn't enough. I had to speak the English like they speak it in America. You know what I mean? I had to
Well,
have the same slang. Exactly. I had to have the same slang. I had to have the same handshakes. I had to have the same sense of humor. And then I started connecting with the people there more. And then I started celebrating with them whatever festivities they're celebrating. I wanted to know more about. And so now it's become part of my routine and part of me as a person.
man, you're smart. That's another thing. You're super smart. You speak to me how you met your coach, Buddy Mcgirt.
So
That's a
and
story.
when I was between Saudi Arabia and Egypt training, we only heard of one name on repeat, and it was Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao, Manny Pacquiao, Manny Pacquiao. Always. And we always heard of another name, and that's Freddie Roach.
Yep.
And so when I decided that my future or my country's future is not gonna be in the hands of the amateur games or the Olympics, that I want to turn pro, I said, okay, I'm gonna travel abroad. I'm gonna go back to the States now. But where am I gonna go? So I started researching, where is Manny Pacquiao and Freddie Roach? And
No
it
way.
said California. I swear, that's exactly. I didn't know anything else. I just Googled where is Manny Pacquiao and Freddie Roach, and then it said California, Los Angeles, and
Mhm.
every single university that I applied to was in Los Angeles. Every single one. I didn't even apply anywhere else. I needed a reason to go. I needed a reason to tell my parents I'm going to Los Angeles to study. And so that's exactly what I did. I got accepted into university there, and then I went to LA. And I remember I arrived one day. The same day I arrived, I called Wildcard Boxing, where Freddie trains, and someone picked up the phone, and I said, "Is Freddie Roach there?" And I was a kid, I was 19 years old.
That's
You
Freddie
know,
Roach on the first ball.
exactly. I was like, "Is Freddie Roach there?" And they were like, no, no, this isn't him, but you could come in any day. He's always around. You know, to me, like that's just crazy that Freddie Roach is just hanging around the gym, you know?
No, me too. I understand where you're coming from. There, me too. I understand.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
So then I walk into the wild card gym and I meet Freddie Roach and I start working at the wild card and I start working with a coach there. And then we start getting some amateur fights in and everything was going well. I was winning all my amateur fights. Everything's going smooth. And then it's about time now that I start competing at the Golden Gloves.
yes,
And so the same day that we were supposed to weigh in at the Golden Gloves, COVID hit. COVID hit, the lockdown hit. They locked down everything. The Golden Gloves was canceled.
that's
The
right.
day I was weigh in, yeah. And so all the gyms shut down. Wild card shut down, and I didn't know any other gym. It was just me and my coach there at the time. And then we trained at his garage in his house. At his garage, we bought two heavy bags. We hung them up. We bought stands, and we used to do mitts. And we worked in that garage for 5 months, every single day, 7 days a week. We didn't rest one day because we couldn't. Because to me, I was so behind on the level of the other guys were at when I first went abroad because I didn't ever have a heavy bag. I didn't ever have for half of my career in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, in the Arab world, I didn't have a boxing ring. So the first time I ever saw a speed bag was in the US. The first time I ever saw a double M bag was in the US. The first time I ever hit a heavy bag that didn't move when you hit was in the US. Of exposure in the Arab world in boxing is not the same at all. So the level of IQ in coaching is very, very different. It's it's like it's
It has.
the earth and the heaven. It's very, very different. So when I left, it felt like I was starting over. I was so behind on the level. So when COVID hit, I was like, this is my opportunity. The world has literally stopped. It has literally stopped. So this is the perfect time for me to outwork everyone else and catch up to the level that they are at so I can start competing with these guys because I got my behind handed to me every single sparring session, every single one. And I was just tired of it. So I trained in that garage with my coach 5 months. And then he told me it's time that we go to a gym. There's a gym that's open low key. He said we have to start sparring again and let's go to that gym. I was like, okay, where's that gym? He said it's in the valley. I was like, all right. Before I continue, I have to say that when I used to go to my dorm room at night, my coach at the time used to tell me because I have a very good jab and I had a very good jab at that time too. And he told me to
Yeah,
go study a fighter called Buddy Mcgirt. I
yeah.
was like, Buddy Mcgirt. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna study Buddy Mcgirt. I used to go back to my dorm every single night, and I have Buddy Mcgirt mentioned on my Instagram years before I even met him. And he's just mentioned on my Instagram of me studying his tape in my dorm room at 1 a.m. and at 2 a.m. of studying his jab over again. So then we walk into that new gym and we start sparring there, and then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, Buddy Mcgirt walks in. I'm like,
Oh,
I'm like,
oh,
what?
wait, dude, that's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
and the stars aligned. I look at my coach and I tell him, whose gym is this? And he tells me it's Buddy McGirt's gym. I'm like, Buddy McGirt is alive? I told, I swear, I swear that's exactly what I told him. I told Buddy McGirt is alive. He said, yeah, man, that's his gym. That's it. That's it. That's him right there. And then so I start sparring for at that gym,
Yeah.
and it was a professional gym, no amateurs. I was the only amateur. So I went from trying to be as good as the amateurs in the US, and then COVID hit. I was nowhere near as good as the amateurs, and now I have to try to be as good as the pros. I have to start sparring with the pros and competing with the pros, the people who sit down on their punches, the people who don't punch to get points but punch to hurt you, to knock you out.
Oh yeah.
So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, so I start sparring with the guys there, and then I start sparring with Buddy's guys there as I improve, and then Buddy starts realizing my work, And let alone that the amount of times I've sparred the guys there. The first time I ever sparred the pro, our third sparring session, he broke my ribs.
Oh
And
my!
then yeah, I broke my ribs. I had
Broke
to
your.
rest for so many months, and then I came back with a rib guard. I bought a rib guard so I could be able to spar again. And I came back, and then I fractured my hand. And then I solved that issue, and I came back. And so Buddy just kept seeing that, one, I have a very good jab, and
Oh yeah.
then two, he saw that I just kept coming back. Maybe I wasn't the best. Maybe I still am not the best, but I do keep coming back. And
Uh,
then
a heart.
I
It's
just saw, yeah, yeah, I just saw Buddy Mcgirt there, man. And I just said I will miss 100% of the opportunities I don't take. So I have a very good friend in Adam Lopez and in Carlos Balderas. They're two fighters that
yeah.
train with Buddy Mcgirt. And I spoke to them at the time, and I was like, guys, because I used to spar them. I was like, I want Buddy to train me. How do I get Buddy to train me? And they helped me. You know, they used to talk to Buddy a few times, and then I sat down with Buddy and I told him, hey man, like you don't understand the feeling of having your idol sit right in front of you. I said, can you train me? And Buddy just took me in like I'm his son. Yeah, I had zero pro fights. I had less than 10 amateur fights in the US. I had no experience, nothing. But Buddy Mcgirt took me in, and he saw something I didn't see. You know, maybe he saw something in me at that time,
A
and he
heart and
took me in.
resilience to
Yeah,
to your resilience to adversity is what made him say
exactly,
like, this guy just got his ribs broken. He just broke his hand. He just bought a
exactly.
guard and he's back in the gym.
A rib guard, yeah, exactly.
Ah, unbelievable. Yeah,
The
that's exactly.
stars aligned. I always just say the stars aligned with me and Buddy. You know, it's a very crazy story. You know, like to have him mentioned on my Instagram 2 years before I even met him, let alone known he was still alive. You know,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
that was his gym. So it was
Exactly,
like after another that you were just like in awe.
exactly.
You know, I want to. So one of the big things here is that you went to the United States when you were 19, and then it locked down. So you were
Mhm.
forced into solitude and isolation. Just going
Yeah,
back to
even worse than the isolation that I was in, because at least I used to go back to Saudi Arabia once or twice a year. I used to go back in December at the end of the year, and I used to go back in Ramadan. But when
yeah,
COVID hit, I stayed a year and a half with airports shut down. I wasn't able to go back, and
right.
I'm 19 years old, you know. So I'm alone in the country now, just working, and then the time difference is so bad that by the time I wake up, they're asleep. By the time they wake up, I'm asleep. We don't get a window to call unless I stay up late. But I can't stay up late. I have to sleep early, so I have to
Yeah.
train. So I couldn't even talk to them. I couldn't even call them. I couldn't even FaceTime them. I used to send
Uh,
them voice messages, and they would send me back voice messages.
how did you meet Rachel?
Oh, Rachel, she's the first, let's just say, Rachel is the first female manager to a male athlete in Saudi Arabia.
And let's
So
congratulate
she,
on
yeah,
that. Is
yeah, congratulations to her, because that's, you know, it's part, we have that same vision, me and Rachel, of we want to break grounds and we want to change perception that people have on the Arab world. And we just want to make history. We want to make what's abnormal normal, and we want to be the first to do it. So yes, females can manage male athletes, and yes, females can do this and that. You know, so we're starting to develop that idea in sports and in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with their help. And
Mhm.
so Rachel, I met through Buddy. You know,
Oh, okay.
Buddy, yeah,
Around the same
Buddy
time.
was at the gym. Buddy was at the gym, and he knew I needed a manager, and more importantly, at the time, I needed a PR. And Rachel used to work with the management at that time, and Buddy wanted me signed, so he spoke to Rachel. Rachel came to see me at the gym, and from day one, Rachel just treated me like a mother. From day one, I'm not even kidding. Like before I even knew she worked with a management, and that I wanted to sign with that management. You know, I didn't. I just thought she was just a person that used to come and hang in the gym, and she treated me like a mother, honestly. And then it just took off from there. You know, she left the management that she used to work with. Now she's doing her own thing, and
Yes, yes.
now fast forward those years, she's still in my corner long before and long before we started getting involved with the big Saudi fights and the big Saudi, backing and stuff like that. Before they found out about me, Rachel was still in my corner when we used to try to fight on the local cards in downtown LA and stuff like that to get my career going. So she used to do all the PR work for me, and then
Literally.
now she's my co-manager. So it's crazy.
Wow. So, oh wow, dude, that's super genuine, and it came in an exact
Yeah,
time where you were by yourself, and
exactly,
that's like a figure right there. Like,
exactly.
and you're also managed by Paul Smith,
Paul Smith.
correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So you have a little bit of everything. You have a little bit of
I
the
have a
Arab.
family in my team. That's what I
Yeah,
always say. I have a family in my team, and I used to tell Buddy all the time. I used to tell him, like, you guys need to understand that when I leave home, I come here, I don't have a family. So my family here is my team. And that's
yeah,
how it's supposed to feel like. That's how I need it to feel like. So Buddy feels like family. Rachel feels like family. Paul feels like family. My strength and conditioning coaches feel like family. Every single one of them played such a huge part in my story and believed in me. Maybe even at times where I didn't believe in myself as much as they believed in me, but they gave me that faith and they gave me that push to keep going because they believed in my story and they saw, again, like you said, they saw the desire and that heart, and they knew that this could take me far. And
wow.
we're now just beginning. I'm not to say I've went far or anything, but we're just beginning now.
And congratulations on your last win. I wanted to congratulate you on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
My brothers and I, we root for you big time. How did you like overcome your second fight when you got knocked down? You got knocked down, and then you got right back up and you won that fight. How did how did that feel? That must have been a shock to you. You probably weren't ready for that, or there's a lot of pressure on you, a lot of eyes on you, and you're a young guy. You're still
Hmm.
human.
Hmm.
So what did
Hmm.
you feel, and then how did it feel like when you overcame that?
So here's the thing. We It's very rare that we see a professional fighter in their first 10 or 15 fights getting tested as much as I am
Yeah,
getting tested at the level I'm coming in at with. I'm coming in with less experience and at a very different level than other fighters abroad would be turning pro too. And it's very rare that you see them tested to this magnitude. And when I say it's very rare to see them tested, I don't mean by the level of fighters they're fighting. Not only that, but the level of shows and exposure that I'm getting in my
yeah,
earliest fight. This is a huge blessing. Don't get me wrong. I'm living my dream. It's a blessing that I'm always grateful for. And what God gives, God can take away. So I'm always working every day to deserve it every single day. But what people don't understand is the other fighters when they were fighting their first 10 fights on shows that weren't probably even televised, they were making mistakes as well. It's just the only difference is nobody saw it. But
you're,
my fight, my learning fights, my mistakes that I'm supposed to naturally do in my first 10 or 15 fights, they're seen by everyone. They're
yeah,
viewed by millions around the world and thousands in attendance. And then not only that, I have to be very strong mentally because in my second fight, for example, in Saudi Arabia, I was practically the co-main event. I
yeah. I
was
know.
right before the co-main event. I was right before Badu Jack and Makabu.
Yeah, I
So,
know.
it's like Jake Paul, Tommy Fury were the main event. So I was practically a co-main event. I was
That was
fighting at a Yeah, I was fighting at a full 30,000 seater of
wow,
everyone there, and I'm fighting a 3-1 opponent.
right.
Yeah, three
But
wins, one loss, and I have one win, and I didn't even have rounds in the back. But
wow,
this is the challenge that we wanted then. And so again, when I say challenge, I don't mean physical. Physically, I can do it all day. I don't mean anything, but I've been in the game now for a long time, and I've been sparring champions and champions better than the people I've been fighting now. But mentally, it's different when you have to fight at a good level with that much pressure and with that, mental strength that you have to develop and learn. So I have a mental performance coach. I knew the biggest thing that I was gonna struggle with when I moved abroad to take on my professional career was mental. And so I got a mental performance coach from Egypt.
Wow,
So
people
he's a mental performance coach. Yeah, yeah. A mental performance coach is different than a sports psychologist. He's a sports psychologist, but also they train your brain. So they enhance your reflexes, they enhance your problem solving, enhance your reaction time, your patience, all of that by doing games and just like lectures. So they give you many lectures on what to do in specific situations long before you even meet them. So the difference is when you go to a therapist, for example, you go to him with the problem at hand and he gives you the solution. A mental performance coach or a sports psychologist, sometimes what they do is they give you the solutions to problems you are yet to face. So when you face them in the sport and you have only minimal seconds, you already know what to do because you've studied that. You've been lectured about it.
like second nature
Exactly.
to
And that's what happened when I got knocked down. So what happens is we worked on two things that really helped me get up and finish the fight like nothing happened. The first one is when you are met with a shocking emotion, when you are met with a unexpected feeling or emotion, you usually have three options. You either dismiss the emotion, dismiss the shock, or you either take the shock in, accept it, and deal with it. And then the third one is called you park the emotions that come with the shock and the feelings that come with the shock. And what happens when you park it, it means I will deal with the emotions, I will express these emotions, but in the near future. And when I say near future, I mean just 1 hour or 30 minutes. It's just you are not able to deal with these emotions right now, but you have to deal with it in the near future. That's what parking is called in like mental performance. So I got knocked down in front of thousands. In my second fight, I ran into a stupid shot because mentally I was struggling to deal with the hype. So I wanted a war. I didn't
you
box.
now
I
you want.
didn't jab. Yeah, I wanted to take him out. I wanted the war. And
Yeah,
and I didn't know how to control myself mentally from the hype of the crowd. And I ran into a stupid shot. I got knocked down.
yeah, that
And
was
then
I wasn't like
yeah,
God,
yeah,
you got
exactly. I
but
ran into. And then when I got knocked down, this is what happened. I felt the emotions of fear. I felt embarrassment. I felt worry. I felt everything. I felt all of these emotions. This is the
the
scariest moment of my life.
second you develop all
Yeah,
of that.
for everybody, it was 10 seconds. For everybody, it was 8 seconds. For me, it was 8 days, 8 hours. Trust me.
Oh,
I thought about everything. I thought about who's watching. I thought about what the media would do to me. I thought about my career being just let go or slipped from my hands in my second fight. I thought about is the hype real? Am I actually a fight? I thought about everything. All I felt
oh,
like I told you, I felt doubt, fear, worry, and stuff. But I didn't have time to accept and deal with the emotion because I only had 8 seconds. And then I didn't have the luxury to just dismiss the emotion because if I just dismissed it, then I wouldn't have the motivation to get up and win it again. So
yeah,
then what I did is I parked it. So it means all of these raw feelings of embarrassment, doubt, fear, and worry, I'll park for now because I have a bigger issue at hand, and that's winning this fight. So this is one part that got me through that knockdown. Before I get up, I need to tell you the second part. Now, this is how I dealt with it while taking a knee. Now, getting up is another point. With my mental performance coach, we work a lot on something called visualization. And visualization is the art of being in a moment before you're actually in the moment physically.
right.
So throughout fight week, we used to visualize me winning the fight. And then when you visualize, you have to visualize both outcomes. So you are ready for both outcomes, and none of it is shocking, because shock is what creates stress, and then stress is what creates ill management of a scenario.
Right. And it's a
Exactly. So we
domino.
used to visualize me winning, and then we used to visualize me losing, and then we used to visualize me knocking my opponent down, and then we used to visualize my opponent knocking me down. So what am I gonna do if I knock him down? I'm not gonna go crazy after he gets back up. If he gets back up, the fight isn't over. Nothing's changed. As soon as we're back again fighting, I'm sticking to my jab. I'm not going there to kill him. If he knocks me down, I'm calm, I'm composed, nothing has happened. I get back up. The fight isn't over if I get back up and I stick to my jab and I win the fight. We visualize all that, and
Wow.
we did it over and over and over. So when I got knocked down in that ring, to everyone there, it was the first time. But
It was
for
a
me,
shock for you,
yeah, but for me, it was the 3,000th time I got knocked down, because I've been knocked down so many times this whole week. I've been visualizing it. I already know what to do if I get knocked down, and I've
Wow.
already done it. I've done it before. I've gotten knocked down. I've gotten up. I've stuck to my game plan, and I've won the fight all in here. Now it's just I have to do it in real life, physically,
Yeah, yeah.
to the people, not for me. I need to do it now to the people who are seeing it for the first time. Now I gotta show them.
You're in
So
shock, stressed out because of it.
exactly. So I just went down, and I was calm. I took the knee and I stayed the 8 count on the floor because I wanted to rest my body and I wanted to rest my head. And I got back up, just calm and composed, and I just listened to my corner. It was a wake up call that the hype and the crowd aren't going to be fighting for me. I need to win this fight by myself the smart way, and that's what we continue to do. And so I told you, when you park emotions, you have to deal with them in the near future, and that's maybe 30 minutes or an hour.
Oh,
As soon as the fight finished, I remember, as I was walking into the medical room to get checked right after a fight, the first thing you have to do is get checked by medical team before you do any interviews or whatever. I have maybe 5 cameras and TV following me into the medical room. And as I'm walking in, I tell the doctor in his ear, I'm like, no cameras. Usually they can come in. And then he stops them at the door. He's like, no cameras. And everybody's like, no, no, no. We need to get Zizo. Zizo's our Saudi kid. We need to. And he just closed the door. He closed that door, and I opened the biggest door of crying in my life. I start, I start bawling. I'm crying. And these are the emotions that I parked. These are the emotions of the knockdown, that doubt, that fear, that worry, that all that. These are the emotions where you feel like they're right here, they're stuck in between your throat and your chest. And I just started crying, even though I won the fight. I won the fight fair and square, and I followed my game plan. I jabbed, landed the power punches, everything, and the emotions had to be let out because they were parked emotions. I started crying and crying and crying. Then as soon as I was done crying, everything was good. But I had to deal with these emotions and I had to express them because I had sparked them. And this is what mental performance does. This is what psychology does. This is
yeah.
what the mental game, the mental aspect of it is. It's really, really true. It's not over until you don't get back up. And it's one thing to get back up, but how you get back up and what you do after is even more important.
Of course, and that's what I think everyone understood also. The knockdown, it's only your second fight, but the way you you overcame the way that you overcame that adversity. You wouldn't get. Yeah, I did notice that you didn't get nervous, or you didn't think, okay, now I'm behind on the scorecards or anything. You stuck back to your original game plan, which was the jab.
Exactly. The jab.
Technical boxing, and then you got the win, which was probably just like the original plan, right? Like that. Like
exactly. And then I'm a big man of faith. I'm a very faithful man. I have huge faith in God and my religion and stuff. And it's one thing to deal with what we want, and it's another thing to deal with what is written. At the end of the day, we're gonna have to deal with what is written, not what we want. Sometimes what is written is what we want, and sometimes what is written is the opposite of what we want. And what was written for me that fight was to get knocked down. At that time, it wasn't what I wanted, but the reception and the exposure I got because of not only winning that fight, but because I got knocked down and then got up to win the fight is way bigger exposure than I would have gotten if I just knocked the guy out.
So true.
You know, to me, the God
Everything.
showed, yeah, God showed more in that fight because of the knockdown than what it would have shown if I just knocked him out.
That's so true. I didn't even think about that actually, because there was the publicity of the knockdown, but then there was the publicity,
Exactly.
and then it was a
Exactly.
four. It was like everyone could go back if they missed it and watch it, and
Exactly.
then you won your following fight, the third fight.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That was historical. That was historical again. You know, I was the first local Arab to fight at the O2 Arena, the first Saudi Arabian to fight at the O2 Arena. You know, I'm telling you, these are small milestones that might mean nothing to other people, but to me, you know, no one ever thought that we would have a local Saudi Arabian or Arab turn pro international, let alone fight on the undercard of Anthony Joshua in London at the O2 Arena. You know, so it was a tough test. It was
Love, yeah,
yeah, it was a
pros
tough
right now.
test as well, you know. It
Yeah,
was a good fight. It was a tough test. You know, the guy had 3 wins that came, all of them came by knockout, and he was a southpaw. And so it was a test of its own, you know. Some people just look at the record and they're like, oh man, he has 9 defeats. That's not the idea. The idea is he has knockout power and he's a southpaw. And
it's something.
that's what we wanted to. Exactly, exactly. These are the fights where I'm developing. These are fights where I'm getting the experience that I lacked in the amateurs. I have to learn as I go in the pros. But you know, I'll tell you something, and I said it before. Life peaks. Life really does peak when you stop caring about what other people think.
Oh
That's
yeah,
when life peaks. That's
oh yeah.
when you peak. That's when you reach peak physical performance, peak mental performance, when you stop caring about what other people think. And you have
Oh,
to expect some stuff so that when it happens, it doesn't shock you. And people talking and people, you know, talking, speaking about me negatively or positively or whatever, I don't let it get into my head if it's positive or negative, because I expect people to talk negative just as much as I expect people to talk positive. And I
right.
expect with that much exposure that I'm getting early on, it's natural that people are gonna look for my faults and defaults and you know
Why?
all that stuff early on in my career.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
natural because if I'm fighting on such big cards early on in my career, I'm gonna be making mistakes. It's natural, but it's also natural for people to pick apart these mistakes, and that's okay. You know, at the end of the day, I'm a champion of the people, and I'm a champion of both the people that speak negatively about me and the people that speak positively about me. Because one day, the people who speak negatively are gonna speak positively. You know, that's the goal, and that's the achievement that I'm just believing that I will make happen. You know, if they don't love me in boxing, they will love me outside of boxing.
Uh, Absolutely true. And you know what? No matter if they're speaking about you negatively or positively, that means they're still watching you, and they're still
Exactly,
paying.
exactly,
And if
exactly,
they
exactly.
you can control any crowd.
But I have a very good friend and brother in him, and he's the head of boxing at Skill Challenge Promotions, who I've just signed with. And
Yeah,
he
Prince.
said that if you're not talked about, you're not significant. So
Hmm.
if you're not talked about a lot, that just means you're not significant. And
Yeah.
he said that the higher you go, the lonelier it's gonna get. And that, you know, these are words that I'm starting to see happen right now.
Mentally, it's gonna get lonelier for
You
you.
know, mentally, with more exposure in
Yes.
fights and in just fame or
Yeah.
publicity or whatever, with more exposure, the lonelier it's gonna get. When I mean that, it
Oh.
means it's dealing with it. It's gonna
Yeah.
be alone because not everyone is gonna understand.
Hmm.
Not everyone. So people could be sitting on their couch talking negatively about the way I fight, but the more exposure I get, only me will know how to deal with that because it's only me who's been fighting in his third fight in front of such big crowds and on such big cards. So it's gonna get a little lonelier finding people I can talk to and reach out to help me with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I do understand that completely. And you know, the other thing that I was going to say was the head of congratulations on you signing with Skills Challenge
Thank you,
Promotion.
thank you.
And
Yeah. You know, I mean, Prince Khaled really changed my life. He changed my life completely. He's the one that handed me my dreams after God, of course, but he's the one that handed me my dreams, really. Uh, I just kept storming everyone that had to do with government or sports in Saudi Arabia long before I was discovered by Saudi Arabia. I used to DM them every single day. I used to tag them in every single post. And then word got to Prince Khalid, and Prince Khalid just found out. And as soon as he found out that there's a Saudi fighter that's about to turn pro and wants, and is worthy, not wants, and is worthy of support and backing, he jumped on it straight away. He didn't think twice. And ever since, he's been just a father figure to me. Him and, of course, His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Turki, face of the Minister of Sports in Saudi Arabia. He's also been a huge backer to me, and His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. So these people have just been extremely a big part of my life and a huge blessing in my life, where Prince Khalid, especially, has who I've been directly involved with the most. He's just treated me like a son, like a literal son. And he signed me to Skill Challenge Promotions, the first ever global boxing promotion to come out of Saudi Arabia, and the first ever global boxing promotion to come out of the Arab world. A promotion like this, a global one, a groundbreaking one, and they just do it very different. And when Prince Khalid says it's a promotion for the fighter and for the fans, he means it. They're not tied to a specific network. They're not tied to a specific promoter, or a TV entity. They're just willing to deal with every single promoter, every single TV network, and they're willing to make the big fights happen. That's what boxing needs right now. You know, I know what has been given to me can be taken away at any time, so I have to work to deserve it every single day. So I never, like Anthony Joshua says, never let defeat get to your head and never let the wins get to your heart. So, I'm just start trying to stay grounded, and I know I have a lot of work to do, a lot of improvements to do, and I'm just willing to do or die.
oh, I love it. I love it. I love the passion that you have for it. I love the passion that you have. You are
Thank
full.
you.
Some people that you speak to, it seems like they're doing it for some wrong reasons. Maybe they're doing it just for the money. Maybe they're doing it just for the fame. You're doing it for a higher purpose. I feel like there's a bigger purpose here. I don't know if that's true or
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. No, it's completely true. It's
yeah, you're
completely true. Boxing is my way to the people. Boxing is my way to that stage where when I say something, it's heard. When I try to talk about unity, respect, and culture differences and culture acceptances and accepting people as they come despite their differences. When I say that, I want it to be heard, and I'm just lucky and
just
blessed that I can box and I can do it through that. And this is the bigger purpose. I want to change perceptions and conceptions that people have on the Arab world and Saudi Arabia, where they think people on that side of the world are aliens. But when you have an athlete like myself, an international athlete that comes from a different side of the world, a different country, but also breaks that language barrier, he's easier to relate to. And that's what
yeah.
I want to do. My goal in the sport and outside of the sport, but even mostly in the sport, is to have something no one can ever take away from me, and that is being the first to do A, B, and C and D, being the first to fight at the OT, or being the first Saudi Arabian fighter to turn professional internationally, being the first local Arab fighter to turn professional internationally. These are all stuff after I'm long gone, nobody can take away from me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the feeling I chase. I want to be the first world champion, the first multi-weight world champion, the first undisputed world champion. This is what I'm chasing. Forget the money, forget the fame, forget the
Yeah.
exposure. This stuff is gonna come anyways. It's bound to come. It's written to come with how the story is panning out to be, God willing. It's all bound to come. But what I want is that feeling of something no one can ever take away from me. Money comes and goes, fame comes and goes, but history does not
Man.
come and go. History comes and stays.
You're literally going to be in the history books. You're already in the history books because already
Yeah,
every single little step that you take is a new written history. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
it's literally every single step that you're taking at such a young age. You have so much longer to go in your life, dude. It's like
Yeah,
it's so
God willing, man.
Zizo. It's so admirable. I'm not even kidding around, man. That's like
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate
yeah,
you. This
I
is the dream. The dream.
wanted to know, do you have any fights coming up in that you can speak about, or anything that you're looking forward to that you can mention, or
Yeah,
if
yeah. Well, I can't, of course, speak about the specific date or the specific show yet, but I want to be back in August. I'm going to be back sometime in August, and yeah, this is where uh, I just want to have a longer camp. I want to have a 10-week camp this time. And
yep.
I last fight I competed at 147 because I just came back from a small injury, so we couldn't do a big cut. I want to go back to 140. This is where I naturally compete at, and I go
Okay.
back to 140 and I start knocking people out again. So
Oh,
I just had two fights at 147, but
uh-huh.
I'm too big too early for 147. So it's time to go back to 140 and do what I
And
do
then
best there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so 140 is a big division there.
yeah,
I
yeah.
looking far into the future, but are there anyone that you can envision or you've had your eyes set on that you would love to share the ring in the 140 division?
Honestly, none, to be honest. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way. I've just been taught mentally to always focus on the present. And the present is my next opponent. The future is dreams, and dreams are going to be accomplished at the right time. And the right time is whenever it comes. Just trust it and be patient. And that's how I think about it. So, the champions, of course, I'd love to share the ring with any of them. And it would be the experience I'm willing to go for, but at the right time. Right now, of course, it's not the right time to start calling out these champions, and it's maybe now the right time to start learning from them. This is the type of fighter I am. I try to pick
Yeah,
from the people who made it in those divisions and who have the titles, the champions and stuff, learn from them rather to have my ego interfere and get me arrogant and all that. So I'm
that's
focused on the present. I'm
that's what's gonna.
focused on my present. I'm focused on my next fight, my next opponent, and my career is gonna go just fight by fight, day by day.
And you saying that you take a little bit from a few fighters. Who were a few fighters that you, I guess, when you started watching, or when you were able to look at tape of fighters and everything like that? Who are some fighters other than Buddy that you kind of gravitated
Mhm.
towards?
Devin Haney's improvement.
Oh,
So
Devin Haney.
mentally, psychologically, the improvement of Devin Haney after the Linares fight. This is
Yeah,
something I really admire, and I try to take from where you could just improve drastically with hard work, just like Devin Haney did. And with that improvement comes his jab. I like Devin Haney's jab.
oh yeah.
Um, yeah, I also like uh, Devin Haney really, and Gervonta Davis. I love Gervonta Davis. I just
I love
like,
him.
yeah, I he can't be imitated, so I can't really, take
Uh-huh.
anything boxing wise from him. I just like him as a fighter, but he can't be imitated. You can't take anything from Gervonta Davis because he has some God-given elasticity in his arms and power that is very strange. But
I'm
I've
so
studied the likes of Sugar Ray Leonard so many times. Sugar Ray Leonard is also a fighter that I like to study and pick from.
That's my father's favorite fighter. That's funny that you said
Yeah,
that. These
yeah,
little things.
that's great. Yeah, exactly. It shows that the stars are aligning.
How about Devin Haney? Devin Haney and Lomachenko. Lomachenko is amazing. Devin Haney's maybe more
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Devin Haney takes this one. Just the size and the reach and the jab, I think
Yes.
gets Devin Haney that win. And we've seen what size and weight advantage can be to Lomachenko with Teofimo Lopez. On that
Yeah.
night, Teofimo Lopez against Lomachenko. On that night, Lomachenko was the better boxer, but Teofimo was the better fighter
It
because of
was
his size and weight advantage.
even last fight, I think, also with Jermaine Ortiz.
Yeah,
Jermaine Ortiz, the bigger guy, and I also noticed
exactly.
that Loma, he's different when he's in the ring with a dance partner, or if he's with somebody that's forward and aggressive, like really really aggressive.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah, yeah,
but I am leaning towards Devin also.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm a big Devin fan right now. I think that he's,
yeah. Me too. Yeah.
oh, Canelo and John Ryder. Let's chat about that one.
I think Canelo takes this one. No, I'm not taking anything from John Ryder. It's Canelo's homecoming. He's in Mexico, a full stadium. A fighter is the battles he faces outside of the ring, not inside the ring. And just having these people in that stadium, I know firsthand. And now I'm starting my career. Canelo's at the peak of his career. These fans in that stadium, no way he's letting them down in any situation.
I know 50,000 fans. Yo, what's the largest crowd? 30,000 you had, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This was an amazing experience for me, and I just
No,
want.
thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely, dude. No, honestly, this was an amazing experience for me, and like how you said, you think it's crazy that you saw or you could call and ask for Freddie Rocher. You went to Wildcard Jimmy. I think it's crazy that I'm talking to you, to be honest.
Oh man, that
Oh,
trust me,
really?
man. This stuff makes my feet go numb, because these are
Because
the dreams. These are what dreams are made
that you went through, right? The exact
of.
emotions that you went to the Wild. This is my emotions right now when I was like waiting to get on the call, when I
Oh
started
man.
the call. And you're so cool, dude, that it's like, Miss Rachel told me that uh Miss Rachel, actually, I'm gonna be honest, she told me not to be nervous because I told her I was and she said, "So down to earth." And I said, I saw from your interviews that it did calm me, and she was right. You're a down to earth dude, man.
I
You're
appreciate
amazing.
that so much, man. No,
And I
this is you giving me the opportunity to just live my dream. Trust me. The interviews, the podcast, talking to people who, I could never have imagined that I'd talk to someone